All right. Back at it again with another episode with somebody that I do not have the pleasure of interfacing with as much as I'd like because I'm no longer at the same gym as she is. But today on the podcast, we have Whitney Dunn of CrossFit Brookhaven. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good, James. How are you?
I am living pretty with the shiner on my face, trying to be an amateur fitness god over here, and it's not working. But here we are. I'd like to kind of jump off with how you got into coaching, how you got into CrossFit, how you got into this world that you seem to have such a very fiery passion for, right? And I want to kind of take us back to potentially your volleyball days over there at College of Charleston. Like, how did you even end up in South Carolina? They're playing collegiate sports.
Yeah, I'm a Georgia girl. I'm one of those rare folks who is an Atlanta native that still lives here. Like it doesn't happen very often anymore, but went to school at Marist up by Perimeter Mall and got recruited to play volleyball. It was the center of my life. Volleyball was for age 12 to 22. They recruited me out of club ball, played travel ball pretty much year round. It was, yeah, my life. I don't know how my parents did it with myself and two older brothers, but yeah, they recruited me. It's a small, like little liberal arts school out of Charleston. And it was full-time job, quite frankly. I mean, I loved playing sports. It was probably the reason why I actually got into college. Probably the only reason why I was an awful student, to be totally honest. But I have always been just like a very fiery, competitive person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think anyone who played with me in the volleyball days, like people like to joke that I played like a guy. Like I was like very in your face, like super loud. I got carded all the time. I was just like a very aggressive person on the court. Off the court, very, very different. But after I graduated, I definitely missed that just competitiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And my oldest brother, was the one who actually got me into CrossFit. And he was working out at a gym in Chamblee that I don't even think exists anymore. Adrenaline Fitness. It's like, yeah, it's many lifetimes ago. But yeah, he got me into CrossFit in 2012, and then haven't looked back since.
Okay. And when did you graduate from Charleston?
Oh my gosh, 2011. Yeah,
Okay,
2011.
so you got into CrossFit like after you'd already left?
After I left, yeah. So I was very like sports specific athlete, like sports specific training for the majority of my adolescent years. And then gratefully, I guess I have some like adaptable athleticism. So I was able to like transfer really well into CrossFit and like pick up movements and things really, really
Mm-hmm.
well. Um, I was very fortunate at Marist too in my high school years. We had a strength and conditioning program. So like I was introduced to weight rooms really, really early. And so, which I'm super grateful for now that I'm 30, gosh, almost 34. So all of that carried over and
Mm-hmm.
bled into itself very, very naturally.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Now, when you were at Marist, I know that we had a trash, I would say Olympic weightlifting coach, strength and conditioning when I played football at
Yeah.
McIntosh, where like cleans, our squat clean looked more like a power clean that we reverse curled. What was the introduction to barbell, dumbbell, kettlebell, single leg, offset load? Like, what did that look like at Marist? Because I know that that's a private school, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
private school. So make the association that you want to make with that category. But shout out to Coach Mandy, who I'm pretty sure is still at Marist, does the
Oh
strength and
wow.
conditioning programming. Yeah. Um, it was an elective, I think. So I got to sign up for it as like an extracurricular
Mm-hmm.
class. And it was really straightforward. And it's hard to recall exactly, but I want to say Coach Mandy was taking us through like very foundational stuff. Like he taught us how to squat, like very
Mm-hmm.
foundational things, like a lot of what you see now with like videos of kids in weight rooms, like holding barbells with their arms out straight and like trying to squat with that upright torso position. So a lot of it was very, very like foundational points of
Mm-hmm.
performance, like learn to squat, learn to press, and then you stacked that sort of dynamic pieces on top of it as you develop that proficiency. But in terms of things like, I mean, I want to say we did do a lot of like offset loading and like crazy
Mhm.
stuff. Like it was probably early days of CrossFit-esque types of things. Like
Mhm.
we were doing box jumps, like we were doing speed ladder drills, we were doing like trap bar deadlifts, like we were doing all kinds of stuff that really built solid athletic foundations for someone who's 12, 13, 14 years old.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And did you go to Marist for, I mean, and I have no idea how Marist works. Is it middle school, high school? Is it elementary, middle, high? Is it just high?
Yeah, 7 through 12. So middle school through
Okay.
high.
Okay. And so you stayed at that school and kind of progressed. Did you start the strength and conditioning or like the elective side in like seventh grade, or was it in high school?
I want to say it was seventh grade. Like it was early. So
Hmm.
and I think they obviously kind of catered it a little bit. Like if you elected into it when you're
Hmm.
12, like there's a lot more like developmental considerations taken into
Hmm.
account there. And then as you get older, and of course, like puberty,
Hmm.
maturity, muscle mass development, all that stuff happens, you can sort of progress. Because it really wasn't until like ninth, maybe 10th grade that we started doing anything that resembled an Olympic lift, like
Okay.
learning how to do a hang power clean. Like I'm pretty sure we didn't do any squat cleans because that just probably wasn't just probably just out of like safety and
Hmm.
liability. They didn't want us to do anything like snatches as well.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was a good time. I was very fortunate to have that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, we had like basically the big three, like bench, squat, deadlift. And then we did they should have been hang cleans. They were hang powers, right? They should have been, but most of us had rounded shoulders. Most of us were catching in a weird position. Most of us
Right.
didn't have any thoracic mobility. So, of course, we were not going overhead, and military press looked more like when someone flares their rib cage to the moon.
Oh yeah.
You
Well,
send your getting like you're on stage at a gentleman's club. That's more of what it looked like. So
yeah. It's always funny, like seeing, we joke about this a lot, like
Mhm.
across all ages of
Mhm.
kids and youth in general, like watching just bodies move at these varying ages as they get older. It's like watching my daughter like do things like she's 4, and then like,
Mhm.
I'm like, how do you move your body like that? And then you watch like 14, 15-year-olds, and I'm like, why are you moving your, it's like, I mean, it's just development,
Yeah.
but that's what coaches are for, like
Mhm.
that's what people are there to help you like build that body awareness. And if you teach it that young, like the carryover is just crazy.
Yeah, and pre CrossFit, I mean, it sounds like you were volleyball. Were you doing gymnastics, or you doing anything else outside of volleyball?
No, I was like 12 months, 365 days a year, all volleyball. Like,
Oh my.
yeah, it was wild. So had my high school season starting in
Mhm.
like, we would do like preseason in July. We would play through October. State championships were in October. And I remember like 2 out of the 3 years that we made state finals, like we had state finals on Saturday, and then club tryout started the very next day. And then club was essentially from November until June. And then you have that like 4 week break, and then your whole season for high school starts again. So yeah, it was full time. And I mean, we would practice club 2 days a week from like 7 to 10 p.m. I would do one-on-one sessions on weekends. My parents would cart me around to those all the time. So yeah, it was a full-time gig. No room for other sports or anything else, honestly.
Do you think that you would have been better at volleyball, or more technical, or more foundationally sound if you hadn't just played year round, day in, day out? Do you think if you had like taken some time to do some other sports, or kind of cross train at all, that you would have been in a better position?
Probably, yeah. I mean, I think that I'm great. While I did play year round, I had a lot of coaches and trainers who were like strength and conditioning coaches. So they
Mhm.
folded a lot of training into our volleyball programming versus just like coming to practice and running drills day in and
Mhm.
day out. But I do think that if I always look back and I'm like, damn, I wish I was a gymnast, but I'm way too tall. I'm 5'9". But I do think that if there was a little bit more diversity
Mhm.
in my just background, that I think it would have carried over, or it would have made me far more better volleyball athlete. But I mean, I
Hey,
turned
hindsight is 2020, right?
hindsight's 2020. It still paid for college,
Mhm.
so I'm pretty cool with that.
Yeah, and when you got to like let's say senior year, before you got into CrossFit, right? did you have any aspirations, dreams, or wanted to do anything else in volleyball? Like, is there another level? Is there a professional league? Is there just an adults like semi-pro? Like, what does that look like after college?
Yeah, after college, so I had a couple of girls that were a few years ahead of me who ended up playing pro overseas for a few years. You can
Mm-hmm.
make a good chunk of money playing overseas, especially for volleyball. There's that option. A lot of folks go semi-pro or pro in beach, which is honestly so much fun. Like it's
Yeah.
why you see so many adults playing
Mm-hmm.
beach and sand like all over Atlanta and anywhere else. So I didn't have any like pro aspirations. I think by the time I graduated, I was pretty burned out from
Mm-hmm.
volleyball. Like it was, as much as I love the sport, and to be honest, I don't play anymore, haven't in years. By the time I graduated, I was mentally really ready for something
Mm-hmm.
totally different. So I was ready to step away by that point.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, if you're talking like basically year round, even with the fold in of strength and conditioning and other stuff, I mean,
Mhm.
you're uh you're standing in front of a net almost every single day, 24/7, 365 at some point in the day, right? Like you're there
Yeah,
every daggum day.
literally every day from age 12 to 22. And I was like, all right, and I didn't have time for anything else when I was
Mm-hmm.
younger because it took up so much time. Like I didn't have a lot, I didn't have a big social life.
Mm-hmm.
I had like two really good friends who were on
Mm-hmm.
all of my volleyball teams for all those 10 years. And they're still my two best friends to this day. But by the time I was 21 and 22, I was like, all right, we need a new stimulus.
Yeah.
Like this is great and it's done a lot for me, but it's time to move on.
Okay. And so you graduate, you end up over at Rhapsody. Now, had you gone there when you were also an athlete over at College of Charleston, or
No.
no,
Yeah.
not at all?
No. I'm trying to think. How did I even find Rhapsody? So after I graduated from
Mm-hmm.
college, I moved back to Atlanta for a little while. Moved back to Charleston after a couple of years. That's where I met my husband, and we lived there. And Rhapsody wasn't founded until 2017,
Okay.
and I didn't discover it until actually after I had my daughter, and I was actually getting back into just movement
Mm-hmm.
and all that. So I didn't roll into that gym until 2020. So
Oh,
good chunk
wow.
of time. So I bounced. So like I'd been at a lot of gyms here in Atlanta
Mm-hmm.
prior to that, and then when I moved to Charleston, just took a little bit of a break from CrossFit
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes you just need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, it wasn't until after I was a mom that Rhapsody came.
Dang. Okay. Yeah, that's a different timeline than I thought that it was, right? That's definitely a different timeline. So then let's back up so we don't skip things here. You get into CrossFit into um, a gym in Chamblee that's no longer here, right?
Mhm.
And so you get in and you start bouncing around. Now, did you know at that point that you're like, hey, I could see myself coaching? Or was it at that point like, no, I'm just going to do a different modality and try something new because I have been competitive? I mean, what kind of happened there?
I just loved it. Like it was one of those things where you walked in and I did it and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, like this fills a void for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Like I think up until that point, I had that very like kind of classic experience that a lot of student athletes tell when they leave their college sport. Like they walk into a gym for the first time because they know they need to work out and they like feel very lost. And it's like I know how to work out, but like this is so weird now because I'm not working out with my team and like I
Mm-hmm.
don't have a coach who's like telling me what to do and all this stuff. So coming into what was the name of it? Adrenaline Fitness, that's what it was in Chamblee. Coming in there, it really just like peeled back this curtain for me of like, oh, like this feels like sport again. And I
Mm-hmm.
realized I miss sport and just performance overall. So like the concept of coaching was so not even there. It was just like I was just chasing a feeling, quite frankly, and then just haven't found anything else that really matches that same energy.
Yeah. And I mean, I was a student athlete up through high school, right? But it wasn't, I can imagine that it was not the same feeling for me walking into a CrossFit gym in Athens, Georgia, UGA, as it was for you coming off collegiate sports and year round for almost a decade. Coming in there, I mean, I'd have to imagine, though, that some of the people that I've talked to that have been semi-pro, collegiate, or pro that have then come back to fitness, like there's almost a little bit of imposter syndrome because you've had so much structure. I mean, is that something that you felt, or is it not like that at all? And I'm imagining things.
Um, I maybe for me it was different. Like I have a lot of faith in my athleticism, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that's just because of my prolonged exposure to it. So I felt very comfortable walking in, and I was like, yeah, this is new stuff. And like, yes, this is hard. And I was like, this makes sense. Like, I kind of know, and I know what I'm doing. Like, I understand, like, someone's here to like coach and correct me and like make sure I'm doing things well. I was like, I don't feel like I don't belong here. I was like, I feel like I just need to find my own path in it, if that makes sense.
Okay. So actually probably more comfortability than other people have walking in their CrossFit gym. Kind of felt a little bit more at home, but didn't really know necessarily what was around the corner. You're like, hey, we're here. This is fun. This seems like enough competitive where like left and right, if there's athletes in here, have some fun, but not so, hey, 24/7, 365.
Absolutely. Like, and I think that that's something that has carried over into my life. Like, yes, like I love to compete and I love that like race feeling that you get like when like someone's right next to you and you're trying to just get that extra push. But also like this shit is fun. Like it's supposed to be fun. It's good. Like it's good for you. Like it's community, it's fellowship, it's all these things that so oftentimes are kind of put on the back burner in terms of what you need in your 24/7 of your day. And I'm like, oh yeah, like this totally makes sense. Like there's the fun piece, there's like that like fight piece. And I was like, and that's kind of the happy intersection that I didn't know I needed.
Yeah, that fight piece. Have you ever done any martial arts?
For like a hot second, like kickboxing classes, and then which is like great. I was actually talking to my brother about that not too long ago. Like kickboxing and all of that is fun, but I'm not a big body contact person.
Okay. I was going to suggest jujitsu, but if that's the case, then probably not.
You will not catch me, but like how people play basketball, jujitsu, like how people like physically
body on body. Yeah.
Hard pass. Like
not a big random person touch.
I'm out. Like I'll talk smack from like a safe like 4 foot distance, but then the minute you touch me and you're sweaty, if it's beyond a hug, I don't want it.
It's beyond a hug of someone that you cherish and you already love. Like this random person, you're like,
yeah,
I'm good.
No dice, dog. I'm good. You stay over there.
Right on. So when you jumped into CrossFit, were you going 3 times a week, 5 times a week? Did you have like a ridiculous amount of consistency or kind of just getting your toes wet?
I was like deep in, no floaties. Like, let's just go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Seems to be how you lived your life some.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I think that, yeah, I mean, the benefit of being like young and 22 and 23, like your body can handle an atrocious amount of volume and not feel the effects of that. So yeah, I was literally in there like 5 days a week, sometimes 6, and it was no structure, like no sense of like loading or like take it easy today, like go hard this day. Like, no, it was just like all the things all the time, like nonstop.
Kind of all gas, no brakes.
Literally all gas, no brakes. Yeah.
Okay. But when you were going all gas, no brakes, were there other people around you doing similar things?
100%. By the time I got to CrossFit Paragon, I think there were enough people in that gym who were like actively competing. Like there was Irving Hernandez, there was one girl, Glassell, Jake Berman was in there, who I know is still in the CrossFit competition up at Training Think Tank or wherever he is now.
Yeah, I think he's there.
All those folks were in Paragon at this time that I was like around year 2 in CrossFit. And I was like, oh, yeah, like I didn't necessarily want to like go to the games or anything like that, but I was like that energy of just wanting to train more and wanting to do the skill work. And they were also like welcoming of like including people as part of their training as well, that it just made it kind of infectious and you wanted to be involved. So yeah, that was kind of how all that transpired.
Yeah, and that infectious environment, that community, the accountability, the support. I mean, where does that come from? Does it come from CrossFit as a methodology overall, or does it come from the individual gym?
I think every gym is so different and every gym has its own culture. And I think that collectiveness is very contingent upon the people who go to the gym and the people who work at that gym. The people who work there are responsible for, or who coach there are responsible for creating that culture, for upholding that culture. And then what happens in proxy, at least this is what I think, what happens by proxy because of that is that it brings in similar minded people. It brings in the people who want inclusive spaces, who want welcoming mindsets, and who want to just bring more and more people in. Like, that's something that's built. I don't think that's something that's, I think that's something that's happened because of the methodology, but I don't think that the methodology was made because of that. I think it's just something that's happened as the sport has evolved.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, coming in, you found kind of a home, and was Paragon the first gym that you were like, okay, yeah, I could see myself around these people. I could see myself, maybe not trying to go pro, but competing side by side in classes and doing extra skill work with and learning from. Was that kind of that first home there?
For sure. Yeah, I think, and it hit me at a really good time too, just like mentally. I think I was 22, 23. So like that very like early 20s age when you're just like kind of trying to find yourself and find your place and space in the world. That definitely became a like pillar in my life at that time.
Okay. So you found there, but then how the heck did you end up back in Charleston?
A boy.
A boy.
Yeah. No, yeah. So the quick and dirty story is I went back to Charleston to visit some girlfriends from college. We were out somewhere. I met my husband, my now husband, there, and we were long distance for 2.5 years. We got engaged. I then moved back to Charleston because it was just easier to transfer my job at the time. So then that's how I got back to South Carolina.
Okay. And your job at that time, while you were crushing it in the gym, what were you involved in?
Health insurance sales.
Health insurance sales.
Yeah.
Damn, you've done it all.
I've done it all, man. I worked for Starbucks. I worked for a health insurance company. I have been a multimedia assistant for an athletic department. Yeah, I've been an office manager for a marketing firm. The resume is
Scattered.
scattered. Yeah,
Do you think that if you had to connect the dots backwards, though, that had those things not happened, you'd not be in the position you're in right now?
100%. Yeah. I think that it took me a while to get to where I am now. And I think a lot of it was because I was like, I think deep down, I wanted to coach for a long time. But in my mind, it was not a sustainable job. And I guess in my mind, I didn't want to like divide my time between like working full time and also coaching at a gym, even though looking back, I 100% could have. But as I like kind of walk backwards in my resume, it's like, oh yeah, like all of these little like scattered pieces of employment where I was like, I was here for 18 months or I was here for a year, like all these things. It was just because I wasn't happy and I wasn't doing what I really found a lot of joy in. But the consistent thing across my resume is that the entire time, with the exception of when I had my daughter, or if I was injured for whatever reason, because life happens, you get hurt, like I was doing CrossFit like the entire time. And getting better and building relationships with people and like finding my place in the CrossFit world. And then it wasn't until 2020 or so when I walked into Rhapsody, I was a member for not even a year. And I was like, oh, maybe this is the right fit. Like maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. And then I just kind of took a gut kind of chance and a gut shot and got into their mentorship program. And it just took me a while to get to where I wanted to be.
Yeah. Are you where you want to be?
Yeah. I mean, they're always like, yes and no. Like, I'm always like happy to be where I am, but there's always this need to do, not a need to do more, but I know that there's more work to do. I think that there's always more people to serve. There's always more opportunities for me to learn and to get better. And because I don't do it right every day. So I just appreciate where I am, but I just know that I got to do some other stuff too.
So almost like gratitude for the day to day, for being present here, but knowing that there's more things that you're destined for, and so you're not just going to stop, rest on your laurels. You're not just going to be stagnant.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's 100% that, and I think that it's. I think once you figure out, and I think this goes for anyone, like once you hopefully arrive at a place where you're like, yeah, like these are the things that I enjoy doing, that bring me joy, that are like my purpose, and I'm living that like purpose driven life, to use that like kind of trite phrase. Like I think that once that happens, you're able to toe that line of like, yes, I'm really happy with where things are, but now I truly see the growth potential that can happen now that I am like walking the path that I'm supposed to walk.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. Speaking of that trite phrase, have you read that book, Purpose Driven Life?
I feel like that book came out. Is that James Covey?
I'm not sure who it is, but I know my dad hit me over the head with it so many times. It's an old book though. It's been reprinted.
Yeah. And there's like Purpose Driven Life for teens, Purpose Driven Life.
Oh, there's like 40 spinoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe
contractors, electricians. You're like, it's not that different, guys.
It's all the same. You're just switching out words for industry specific terms. Yeah, I'm pretty sure my mom hit me over the head with either Purpose Driven Life or it's probably Purpose Driven Life for teens. It's probably buried somewhere in my mom's basement, but we've all had it.
Yeah, there's a few books, and that's definitely one of them. My dad used to have a, like the storage containers, like the big. I guess they're like, I mean, it's an oil-based product. It's a plastic, like a very thin plastic that has a little cover that like grandma used to slide up under the bed. You know, those like big, you know what I'm talking about? They're flat.
Yeah,
most people put clothes in them.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Dad pulling 3 or 4 of those under his bed with Purpose Driven Life books to hand out when we're in public, embarrassing me.
Oh no.
Yeah. But hey, read that book a lot when I was younger.
That one and chicken noodle, like all the chicken noodle soup, like variations, like chicken noodle soup for the single parents soul, chicken noodle soup for
it's like also those dummy books, right? Like
oh yeah,
like da for dummies, da for dummies. And it's really, if you look at it, all of these things, and this is just from a marketing perspective, and I know you see this too, like it's literally just the same mental models, right? The same frameworks, just applied to a different industry.
Yeah.
Just applied to a different person.
Yeah. But I mean, hey, if the 43rd iteration gets someone to make a positive behavior change, then that's a win.
There it is, right? That's definitely important. Keeping your eye on the ball there. Now, going to Rhapsody, so you're there for a year, right? Or maybe just shy of a year. And at this point, you're getting more serious with your now husband because you had moved over there, or this is like year 3 with him?
By that point, yeah, we've been married for 2-ish years at that point. So yeah, we were legally locked down by then.
Okay. All right. Legally locked down. And was there an epiphany moment? Was there an instance, a workout, a time that you were interacting with coaches that you were like, maybe I'm destined for this coaching thing and I'm going to try to get in this mentorship program?
Yeah, I think, yeah, there was. So it was, oh my gosh, what workout did we do? We did Jackie one day and I was in the noon class. Because Jackie's 1,000-meter row, 50 empty bar thrusters, and then like 25 pull-ups per time. It's just like this mad dash sprint, like baseline, not baseline, just what's the word I'm looking for?
It's a benchmark.
Benchmark. Thank you. Benchmark CrossFit. Yeah. Thank you. I was like, brain left me. And it was my birthday. And Gina was coaching the class. Shout out to Gina. I love you so much. And it was just like it was just such a well-run class, which is what Rhapsody is known for. It's just super organized, very structured, very balanced. But it was this workout for me where like, I don't know, like I finished it and I felt so happy. And I was just like, I just want to do this all the time. And not just be on like the fitness side of it, but like, it's also the way that Gina runs classes too. Like she's fun. She's just this big personality and it's just an enjoyable experience from beginning to end. And I was like, I want to do that. And I don't get to do that. Like, and I was like, in my current job, I don't really get to do that. Like, I've never really had opportunities to do it. And I was like, I wonder if I could be a coach. I was like, could I do it part-time? I don't know. And so I was like, or maybe I just be a personal trainer. Like maybe it's something along those lines. So I started looking at I started going through NASM and all that stuff. And then I just took a gamble quite literally one day and just texted the owner of Rhapsody, Alan Shaw. And I was like, hey, want to pick your brain about personal training and coaching and all of that. And I texted him, and then 5 minutes later, he picked up the phone and called me, and he's like, hey, be in our mentorship program. Like, you would be a great fit. So it was me taking a chance. I felt like I kind of just like took a chance on myself. And then the universe was like, yeah, like, congratulations, Whitney, you finally made the right decision. We've been trying to point you here for a really long time. And it's a rigorous program. I learned a lot. it really did build me into the coach that I am and the standard that I have for myself as a coach. And it's been, it was definitely just this kind of like, oh, like aha moment that I had.
Yeah. And what is the standard of your coaching? What does that look like? I've never been coached by you.
Oh my gosh, yeah. What a sad
Sad
note.
day. I'll have to be a dropping guy one of these days.
Oh yeah, we'll roll out the red carpet for you if you decide to stop it. Me, I my coaching standard is I want everyone to have fun.
Okay.
I want everyone to be safe, and I want everybody to be successful. And for me, I come to the floor like as myself every single time, and I want to create an environment for everyone where they feel comfortable coming as themselves. I don't ask you to leave your bullshit at the door. Like bring your bullshit. Like bring your bullshit. Like because this is a safe space, and I want my class to feel like it's a safe space for you to be like, yeah, you had a shitty day. It's like, all right, like tell me why you had a shitty day. Like, and we can talk about that through movement. Like we can get that out through movement. And I want you to move well. Like we're going to go through progressions. I don't care if you've been doing power cleans for 17 years. We're going to start from the hang. We're going to talk about your front rack position. We're going to go through all these parts and pieces, because a lot of times I tell people, and I mean, I feel like this speaks to your sweet little boo-boo you have on your head here. Like there are people who spend their full days, 18 hours a day, training these lifts, training these movements, training these things, and they're still not good at them. It's like, so why shouldn't I teach you the bare points of performance every single day and every single time? Like, yes, I'm going to tell you the same things over and over again and teach you how to like navigate through these movements in the most efficient way possible until you're able to do it. Am I probably going to get on your nerves at some point? It's entirely possible. But if you aren't going to do your push-ups to the full range of motion, then I'm just going to stand there until you do them the way that I ask you to do them. So that's a little bit of like my coaching style, I guess. Like it's this balance of like, hey, like I'm here to like, this is 100% fun. Like this is supposed to be the best hour of your day. But there's also that like relentless pursuit of just good movement, quality movement. So that's my standard for myself and the standard I want not everyone to have for their own coaching. Everyone has their own styles, but I think that that's how I feel I do it.
Yeah, and you mentioned something that I find interesting being a coach myself. You said bring your bullshit, right? Mm-hmm. Bring all of you. Now, do you think that that's something that's not common in a class setting in CrossFit or other methodologies?
I think a lot of times gyms will present themselves as like, leave your worries at the door. Like we'll take care of it. Like when you come through our doors, like your day should just magically disappear. That's not realistic at all. Like I've had more like personal training clients and like group training people come into class and just be like, I'm like, hey, like, how's your day? And it's like, I just got off of a really terrible shift for whatever reason or another. Like I got into a fight with my like daughter last night about something along these lines. And I think it's important. You can't expect people to move well and to do well in your class if you don't build trust with them. And you build trust with people by asking them about the other parts of their day that are unrelated to fitness, because those other things are going to immediately impact how they move in your class. It's like, hey, I slept for 4 hours last night, but I just want to move my body. I'm like, cool, man. I'm so pumped that you're here. We're going to dial back this volume a ton. We're going to change these movements a little bit and you're going to have fun, but I want you to just be successful. And I'm just happy that you're here. So yes, bring your stuff to me. It sounds very like couch therapy in a sense, but I think that it's the better alternative to leave your worries at the door and forget your troubles behind you and all that kind of mentality.
That kind of mentality that you're speaking about, that you're the opposite of, would you say that kind of falls in the place of the toxic positivity, like that everything's all cheery and happy and sunshine and rainbows every damn day, which is not the truth and we all know it?
Yeah, I think it does. I think that it's very unrealistic to ask people to be in a positive mindset all the time. Like, I think the challenge is to ask people to find not necessarily the positive opportunities inside of like everything, but it's like, hey, like, let's just like, we need to reframe that mindset. Like, instead of toxic positivity and like think that everything's sunshine and rainbows, it's like, hey, like, yeah, this sucks, whatever situation this is. It's like, okay, but not how can I, it's either how can I make it better or how can I react to it in a way that's healthier, in a way that's more productive, in a way that's going to maintain this relationship that I have. Like, I think it's more about that versus like, oh yeah, man, it's good. We're Gucci. Like, we're going to be okay. I'm like, no, I mean, you may not be okay, but you'll be less not okay if you react to the situation in a better way than you maybe instinctually want to.
Got it. So pulling the mask off and finding a way to be productive through working through it, not for productivity's sake, but for betterment of yourself and betterment of those around you.
Yeah, just behavior change.
And would you say that your coaching style and your understanding, your desire for that to be the space that you create for people, was that something you had from the jump with the Rhapsody mentorship?
No. I think that was the one thing that I learned. What we were taught is you're like, the people who come to your class are buying tickets to see a show. And you as the coach are there to lead them through this show of class, this performance of movement and this expression of movement, which, like, yes, to an extent, I totally agree with. But I think that it, for me, sometimes felt not necessarily inauthentic, but it just didn't hold space for like what is actually true. You know, like, yes, I'm here to teach you movement, and yes, I'm here to be your coach, and yes, I'm here to have you complete a workout at the end of the day. But there's a piece of that that needs to account for how you feel, like how you actually feel. And it's my job to, like, as the leader of the show, the person on stage, like, it's my job in my mind to step off the stage and come sit next to you for a little while and be like, hey, like, how's this going for you? Are you liking this? If you don't, what can we do to change? Like, how can we make this better for you? So I think that that's where I saw that gap, and I was like, why don't we just change this a little bit? And so I think that that's where I kind of found my niche.
And did that happen, how, first of all, let's back up. I don't even know how long this mentorship is. Is it 6 months, 6 weeks, 12 weeks, a year? What does this look like?
It was about, I started in July of 2020 and graduated from the program in January 2021.
Okay. So somewhere
Like
around 8 months,
yeah,
6 to 8, somewhere in there. Okay. And that idea that you have, right, that now is how you coach and how you bring people into the space that you're working in, whether it's telehealth or it's at the CrossFit gym that you're at now or in any other facet of your life. Was that something that took the whole 8 months to come to? Or did you know, hey, maybe month 1, month 2, like, ooh, I see a deficit here that I can fill doing this?
It definitely was towards the end, if not like the end of it, because we spent that whole mentorship, like, we would meet once a week to have one-on-one sessions to talk about movement and like coach progressions. We had hours and hours that we had to complete shadowing, observing. It was a really rigorous process. So like, the confidence to coach was developed in that 8 months. And then it wasn't until outside of that 8 months, probably the first like 2 or 3, where I was like, oh, like, I know my style, like, I know my flow, like, I know how I want to do this. And then it was like, oh, like, we don't have to always be performers on the stage. Like I was taught, like, I can just be who I am, and by proxy, make people in my class feel like they can be who they are in that hour, whatever it is.
Yeah, but that methodology that, like, hey, you are putting on a performance, they're buying tickets there. Is that something that you see at just Rhapsody? Is that something that is seen at a bunch of other types of gyms, at different types of functional fitness facilities? I mean, is that kind of native to them? I mean, I've never really heard that.
Yeah, it's very native. So I think the owners and the founders of that gym, they actually come from a like theater background, like Broadway performers and executive producers on like tons of Broadway shows. So that like ticket to the show mentality is born out of that. So it is very unique to them, but I think that it's something that I have, and it is something that I haven't really seen anywhere else, but it's where I learned to coach. And I was like, oh, is this the standard? Like, I was like, but then as I've gone to other gyms, I'm like, oh no, like you can do it a little differently, and that's okay.
Yeah. What do you think like across the board, functional fitness and people that are disaffiliated, that are still CrossFit gyms, just disaffiliated, what do you think the legitimate standard is? Not what they want it to be, right? Not what CrossFit wants it to be, but what is a legitimate standard in your estimation?
I
Brutal
think
honesty.
I think coaches, I think the standard is low, because I also think that the barrier for entry is really low too. Like if we're talking just CrossFit, like you can pay $1,000, take a class for 2 days, and you're certified to coach. And while that 2 days is very valuable and there's a lot of really good information that comes out of it, it can create this opportunity for just anyone who's anywhere to infiltrate a system and not necessarily take the necessary care and the necessary steps to be the appropriate coach that they need to be. And they end up just being someone who just shows up to supervise, if you will. Yeah. So yeah, I think that there's a little bit of a lower standard in some functional fitness spaces, whether it's disaffiliated or affiliated, but can't solve all the world's problems.
Absolutely. But like, let's say Whitney Dunn is the head of affiliate growth or the head of training at CrossFit. How would you change it?
That's a really good question. I honestly think that the L2, the CrossFit level 2 course, is like they need to put those two classes together and in some shape or form. Like the L2 and the L1 need to come together, because the L2 is where you really, really learn how to coach. You learn how to coach progressions. You learn how to organize a group. You learn how to lead a group. You learn how to identify, and you learn how to rather see and correct faults, versus just the L1 where it's like, hey, here's the standard of a squat. You have to see your hip crease below your knees. You need to see a lock out of the elbow for a push jerk or whatever. The L2 is much more difficult. And I think that would be something that would facilitate a lot of change, because the seminar staff that I've come in contact with, amazing people. Like Chuck, he's done my L1 and my L2. I'm like, that dude is amazing. Like, amazing person, amazing coach. And there's tons of staff who are just equally as phenomenal as he is. And they deeply care, but it's like, it really, really starts in the L2. So I think the big change would be some sort of meld of the two, or extending the courses beyond just 2 days would make it more impactful, more digestible, and more, and would elevate the standard.
Do you think the prevalence of CrossFit gyms, though, specifically in heavily populated areas, is by nature of the barrier to entry to getting a certification being so low? Like the actual access to the gyms themselves?
Yeah. You mean like the ability to like open up a facility and just like
the ability to have an L1 and be an affiliate owner and pop open a gym and bring the access of that facility to the surrounding areas. It seems like I don't think that they have it right. But I would be casting stones out of a glass house over here if I was like, oh, I have the answer. I don't. Right. Yeah. It seems odd that, hey, we're going to entrust 20 members. Right. And I know the ratio is really like 12-1 or 10-1 technically, but a lot of gyms run 1-20, right. Or 1-16. Like it seems a little odd that someone can do less than 48 hours of training, and then the whole health of someone's progression from day one, regardless of where they've come from, walking into a class, isn't in the hands of that coach. And I get that there's personal responsibility for an individual to know where they're at, but how about the people that are extreme weight loss cases or have never moved or didn't play collegiate sports or didn't have team sport experience, where like, you don't know how to move your body. You don't have awareness, right? You don't have awareness. And this happens day one, not because you're being silly and you move too fast through a warm up. Still did the warm up, but like, I know how to not do this. right?
Mhm.
I just try to get to load bearing bar faster. And there we go.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a huge need, and I wish this were a like standard requirement that all gyms, especially if you're a CrossFit affiliated gym or you're like you took, I don't know, however which way you like
Yeah.
base your CrossFit affiliation. Um, I feel like every gym should have an on-ramp program. Like it should be a requirement, in my opinion. Like you join a gym and you've never done CrossFit before, like, sweet, we're so happy you're here. You're immediately being enrolled into our on-ramp program. And it's somewhere from like, it's like, I don't know, twice a week for 4 to 6 weeks, and you cover the foundations. And then, hooray, we've covered the foundations. It's a well-run program. Like it has structure to it. It's built out based on like CrossFit. Like CrossFit provides it to the affiliate owner to implement into the affiliate. And then that athlete is now more prepared and more confident to enter into a traditional class setting where the ratio does tend to be somewhere like 16 to 20 for every one coach. And they feel better moving through a standard class. Like if that were like a baseline requirement for every single affiliate, I think that would be a huge value add. But yes, that also requires having enough staff to run those courses. And there's a lot of like gray area in there to make that exist.
Mm-hmm.
But like best case scenario, like if that were the standard for all affiliates, then I think that would be a huge, huge, huge value add. Like on-ramp program that was programmed by CrossFit to implement into your gym. Big solution. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. And with that, would that be something that would take the place of any kind of normal class attendance with similar movement patterns, but just taking out implements? Because like the first thing that pops into my head when you say that is, hey, I love that, and I 100% agree. Right. At the last gyms that I've coached at, I wanted to do something along those lines. Sometimes fiduciarily, it's not feasible, right?
Yeah.
Unless you yourself as a coach is going to be the one that goes and does that, and then that's kind of like, hey, now we're being the individual that's getting sacrificed to make this time up. So, and the other thing that perhaps comes up in my mind, and I'd love your thoughts on this, is if you start people out on a foundations program, does that not create a little bit of a dissonance between regular membership and new peeps to not be in one class together? And what I mean by this is having people, maybe day one you walk in and we have squat snatches, okay, barbell, full snatches. And that new person maybe instead does a very light 5 to 10 pound ground to overhead or hang snatch, 5 to 10 pounds. I mean, would that be better to do side by side with the foundations so that they at least feel part of the gym? Or are you saying one or the other?
That's a good point. I honestly like that alternative better because, to your point, it brings people into the community of the gym versus having these two separate entities running alongside each other and not crossing paths. But then what happens is you have 16 to 20 people in a room and you have one coach and you're trying to triage, you're trying to see and correct. And because like my goal in my class is like, I want to give every single person in my class one little golden nugget of information. That's always my goal every class. And that's really hard to do when you have 16 to 20 people in your class. So it's a give and take. It's hard and it's not a perfect system. And I don't know, maybe it's a little bit of both.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I like to try to problem solve. And for me, it seems like there's a need, right? CrossFit has got some things right? Like look at the community, look at the games, look at, all of the accountability and
health benefits.
Yeah. I mean, and that's not the sexy part for a lot of people. Right. But like, that is a big, big component of why this works long term. I think that, I can Monday morning quarterback over here, try to, I'm not affiliated with CrossFit. And I mean, I don't control their affiliate program or anything like that. But I've definitely seen at some gyms where I'm currently at, where I was previously at, where I was at, in college, Like there's sometimes just there's a gap, and I hate it because both people on both sides feel disconnected from the other. And the problem for me is, excuse me, the problem for me there is like, what about the people that this might be the last gym they walk into? So not the you and I's, not the you and I's are like, okay, this gym doesn't work out, we can go to another gym down the road. But the people that are intimidated, that are potentially in a place where, body fat percentage is in a very unhealthy range and they're trying to get it figured out. They don't know how to start. They come here and then they get split from people. Is it going to set them up better in the long run if they stay? 100%. I believe that fully. But what if they quit?
Yeah.
Before we get there.
You got to believe in what you're doing. Because if you as a coach at, regardless of what gym you're at, if you don't believe in what you're coaching and you don't practice what you believe in, then you're gonna lose. It increases your likelihood of losing that person by 10 million %. And it's a hard game to play. It is. But I think so much of it comes down to like, you have to like at the very core of you believe that like I know this is good for you. Like, and I know you don't believe it right now. And I know it sucks. And I know it's hard. And I know that you just like, I don't know. I know you just, I don't know, for whatever reason, something went wrong today. And I hate that happened for you, but I want you to be here. And you have to communicate that belief, because if you don't, then they're gonna go and they'll be like, yeah, I've tried everything under the sun. I've tried Orange Theory. I've tried CrossFit. Like I've tried going to LA Fitness and I've done all these things. But it's like, if you just believe in, if it just takes one just extra modicum of effort and belief in what you're doing and what you're coaching to get that person to stay, and not just treating them like a number in your gym and just not just treating them like a body on the floor. It's like, I don't know. It's I feel like the mom in me comes out a lot when that happens. It's like, no, like I want you to do well. And I want to like just support people as much as I can, especially when I feel like like those newer athletes, like are people who are like, yeah, like I'm just like, this isn't the right fit for me. And I'm like, but it is. Like, I know you can do it. You just need the right environment, and it just takes a little creativity and takes a little bit of back and forth. But yeah.
Would you say that most coaches have the capability to interface with clients like that?
I think so. Yeah, actually, I actually do, because I was going to say no, but I honestly think people do. It's yeah, because it's not hard to communicate like passion and communicate drive. Like, yes, like a lot of folks coach as a means of supplemental income. It's not their primary job. But I think that there is enough. I think that everyone if you're an adult, like, how to interface with a person in a way that is like meaningful and purposeful and intentional. And I feel like it takes more of an effort to be on the opposite side of that. I feel like it takes more of an effort to be standoffish, to be a little bit more aloof, to be not as personable than it is to be the other way. Like, I think it comes back to what I was saying earlier, like meeting someone where you're at, like meet them where they're at and just level with them, like be real with them. Like, and the more real you are with a person, and the more like you're like looking them in the eye and telling them like, yes, like you need to be here and I want this for you, like the more that they're going to believe you. And I think that that's the first rule. So I think a lot of people are capable of it. I think more people make the choice not to be.
Have the capability, but then choose to, you know what? This is just this small part of me, or this only means this. So like, I'm not going to give it my all and actually go in the opposite direction.
And I'm an introvert. Like, I'm a very introverted person. Like, I like my alone time. My way to recharge is very solitary and very quiet. It's like, but I mean, you've seen me in the gym. It's like, I'm like, hi. It's a different person. And I'm not a different person, it's just a different part of me, And I think that everyone lives in that duality, but it's like, you just have to make the choice. And you decide to be a coach for a reason. What's the reason you decide to coach? Like, answer that question, and then you can you can be that person that interfaces on a much more passionate level. But you have to honestly answer that question, like, why did you decide to be a coach? Did you decide to be a coach because you're passionate about CrossFit? Yeah, cool. Be passionate about CrossFit. Show me how you're passionate about CrossFit. Like, show me how you're passionate about powerlifting, weightlifting, sleeping well, health optimization. Show me that you're passionate about it, and like walk that or talk that talk. And then watch things unfold for you. Like, watch the relationships develop, like watch your skills grow and flourish and all these things. But you got to answer that first question before you do anything else.
Yeah. And almost got to see yourself for why you're here and who you actually are before anyone else can see it.
Yeah, you got to look yourself in the mirror. And I mean, and that's anything in life. Like, if you don't answer the questions of why are you doing something without a little bit of honesty, then you're not going to follow through with any sort of true accountability or honesty. And yeah, you can apply this to anything. And so if you're not being upfront with yourself about it, then you can't be upfront with other people about it either.
Facts. I love that. I love that. So in the 8 months, right, before you came back to Atlanta, right, this mentorship program seems like they did a lot of stuff right. Right. Was there a part in, well, going through that you hit a big snag, or you learned a lot about yourself, or it was super difficult?
Yeah, I I have always, I think I learned that coaching is a lot harder than people make it out to be. And I spent a lot of my life being able to learn things very quickly. Like, I picked up sports very quickly, like, and that's my frame of reference for everything. Like, I was like, I'm used to learning how to do things well quickly. And I entered this mentorship program and it was like brick wall. Like, I remember coaching a I got put on the spot to coach a snatch progression. Like, I knew how to coach it, but it was very much like, hey, like, Whitney, take me through it. And I failed. I cried. I blanked. Like, it was just like, and it was hard. And it was something that, and I had many moments like that, like learning how to teach progression, learning how to see and correct and identify faults and how to adjust them appropriately. It was much, much harder than I anticipated it to be, but it made me work so hard and made me appreciate the work that goes into preparing for a class and the work that you have to do to prepare to go into a class. So yeah, it was a humbling experience, but it taught me a lot for sure.
And something that I stole straight from your Instagram that's public. You said shying away from feedback and constructive criticism is like stepping over $100 bill to pick up 50 cents. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, it's like, dude, give me the feedback. Like, tell me where I went wrong, please. Because if I don't know, I'm going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. So we would always, in the mentorship program, we had, I think it's the picture that's attached to that caption. It's a form that we had to fill out. Like, we would evaluate each other's classes quarterly. And we would always ask each other, what are 3 things you liked about your class? What are 3 things that you want to improve about your class? And there's a lot of other stuff on that form too. But it all boiled down to creating an environment of feedback and wanting to give feedback, and also like craving to receive it. Like, my favorite classes and my most memorable classes were when other coaches would take my class. Because like Carrie would take my class, for instance, and I would, like, class would end and I was like, hey, like, what did you like? What didn't work? And he would give me a flat, straight answer every single time. He's like, yeah, that sumo deadlift hypo progression, I didn't like it. I was like, cool. Why didn't you like it? Blah, blah, blah. Try this next time. Perfect. Thank you. And like, and it's just this, it was the culture of the staff there. And I try to carry that into the gym I'm at currently. It's like, I even ask members that, like, hey, like, how was that for you? Did you like that progression? Like, what's something else that you want to try, or anything along those lines? I think feedback there's no other way to get better than to ask for feedback and to give it.
Yeah. And in that mentorship program, do you get feedback weekly, daily, multiple times a day?
Every hour on the hour, we would get feedback about everything. Like, it wasn't just coaching. It was how do you interact with members? Like, how do you, I mean, like cleaning a gym, like how do you do that? And how do you do it well? Like it was top down, like here's our standard and this feedback is going to happen to you all the time. And this is the norm. And this is what is going to make you better. So yeah, it was relentless feedback. I'm great.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
And that process of relentless feedback for you, I mean, what have you outside of what you already mentioned, right? Asking members about, hey, progression, movements, walking through cues. What else have you brought to the gym that you're currently at and implemented from that mentorship that you carried forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's still like I feel like we're still in the very early days of me being a GM at Brookhaven, and I spent those first couple months like really just trying to get to know people. I felt very like stranger danger. At least I put that on myself. I was like, y'all don't know me because I was just an open gym kid and never came to class, and now I'm here all the time, and you don't know who I am. But I knew James, so like that's okay. So the first couple of months, honestly, was really spent just building rapport with people. But a lot of it is just building rapport with members and building rapport with coaches. Like I'm the only female on staff, so I gotta check in with the boys, make sure they're all doing okay, doing all that. But a lot of the things that we've just started implementing are more internal, like bi-monthly team meetings, just to check in, talk about programming, talk about membership needs, coaching feedback, that type of stuff. I mean, little things like routine cleaning and like really simple stuff. Like we've started implementing the program that we follow at Mayhem, started like publicly offering like the scaling options just so people can have something to look at outside of just like the RX workout of the day. We're working on, what else are we going to work on? It's just a lot of random stuff. I don't know. A lot of it right now is just like growth, like business growth stuff that Rod and I are working on together. But as that revenue comes in, hopefully we can start some specialty courses, focusing on like weightlifting and other skill building things. We're doing a competition in May for the first time, which will be really fun.
Heck yeah.
So little things. I mean, it's a tiny gym, so like it's little small things, and so making it work.
Yeah. No, that definitely makes sense. I mean, it's a small gym, but the community's tight. I mean, the same people that have been there for years are still there, and you'll know if someone doesn't like something because everyone speaks.
Tight knit, and that's one of the things that I like immediately started doing was once a month, I make a point to just sit down, connect with 2 members, just like, hey, what are you liking about the gym right now? What are some things that you want to improve about the gym? And then also asking the question too of what are the things that are top priority for you outside of the gym? Like what are the things that are like the most stressful for you in the other 23 hours of your day? Because you want to try to find ways to add value to people's lives and outside of just like a workout, it's like I'm trying to figure out like I need space to like get out of the house for work and things. So we're talking about adding a recovery program like once a week for just like mobility and stuff because nobody stretches.
No one in any gym does. Literally, almost no one
stretches ever. It's literally impossible. So like implementing recovery programs, offering and building out some nutritional resources and just general things. There's a huge network there too of people with a lot of amazing skills. So leaning into those to just bring some exposure and just bring some new things to people.
Yeah.
It's an amazing community. It's
a heck of a gym. I mean, getting to know those people over the previous year was definitely a special time, from basically November to November. So I've got to ask, right? You're still at Wild Health?
Yeah.
Okay. I know. I saw that. I was like, oh, a nice little shameless plug. I like it. Gonna be in every single piece of media. I love it. So you're at Wild Health. You're at CrossFit Brookhaven. You're a mom, and there's so much more to you outside of that. Like, how the hell do you juggle it all?
I knew you were going to ask this question, so I was actually thinking about it this morning and like how to answer it. It's 2 things. It's non-negotiable boundaries and one hell of a support system. I draw very hard lines when it comes to my family and the time that I spend with my family. And then it's also about asking for help because I am one person, I am one body. I can't do all things by myself. So yeah, a lot of times of the week I'm calling my dad to ask him to pick up our daughter from school. A lot of times my husband's helping me fold towels before we go to bed at night so I can take him in the gym in the morning before I coach 5 a.m. class. Um, it's a it takes a village to do anything. And I'm super grateful. That's the big reason why we moved back to Atlanta, quite frankly. But yeah, non-negotiable boundaries. I turn my phone off a lot of times and put it in do not disturb for significant portions of time when I need it. I stay away from the gym from a work setting on the weekends, unless it's an emergency. But yeah, non-negotiable boundaries and just asking for help.
Yeah. And with those boundaries, did you always have those with your work?
Oh, no, hell no, no. I I used to be a doormat, quite frankly. Like I would
Same.
be the yes woman to all things. Like, oh, you need me to do that? Like, yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, I silently complain and like bicker to myself about why the fuck am I doing this? Yes. But then it really wasn't until honestly pretty recently. Honestly, it was after I worked for Starbucks. So like right before I got pregnant. And I was like, oh, that's not going to fly anymore. So yeah, it took a long time for me to develop like the ability to say like no and the ability to also ask for help and be like, hey, like I can't do these things by myself and I do need you, but also like don't violate my space when I need my space away from this thing. So yeah, it was not always a skill.
Yeah, definitely has not always been a skill of mine either. More recently, similarly, right? I'm like, oh yeah, and you're not talking to me. Goodbye. Right. But for most of my life, not so much. I'm like, and I don't know about you. And I mean, I'd love to understand why maybe you got there. But for me, it's some of it is trade openness, but most of it to me is like, I want to perform higher. I want to do more. And for so long, I conflated the two with like doing more and reaching higher heights meant like an assumption that has to be assumed there or a premise that has to be accepted there is that you do everything for everybody. But what's interesting to me is that like as I tried to progress, I just found myself being hindered by more and more people around me because I didn't ever stand up for myself.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, it was rooted in deep insecurity. Like I just wanted everyone to like me. And I was so worried that no one did. So I was like, oh, John needs help moving this thing and whatever. Yeah, like I'll totally do it because I want John to think that I'm a nice person and that I'm here for him and all of these things. Like, oh, like you want to go off on, I don't know, you want to like go out tonight and like do all these things. And like, even though I'm super tired and I got to wake up early in the morning, like, yeah, I'll do it for you because I want you to feel like I'm a really good friend and all this stuff. And I'm like, and I got older and I don't know, I think I worked with some really like just hard-nosed people at this particular Starbucks that I worked at. But after a while, I was like, oh, I don't have to be liked by everybody. Like, I think at that point, I finally started to get to know myself and get to know the person that I was growing into being. And I was like, oh yeah, like I like this Whitney. Like this Whitney's pretty rock solid. I can hang out with her for a long time. And then I was like, I don't have to change who I am to make sure everybody likes me. And also, I don't like everybody. So why should I expect everybody to like me? And it's like, oh, so you're trying to violate my space or like ask me to do something that's extending me beyond the bandwidth that I'm willing to give? No. Like, I'm grateful I have a best friend who's been like that since we were literally 10 years old. So she's also taught me a lot of this behavior too. But a lot of it was just rooted in this need, this fierce need to be liked and to serve and to help. Like I don't know if you know much about Enneagrams. I'm a 2, which is the helper. And so like I just give and I give and I give and I give until I can't give anymore and then I want to give some more. But you don't have to give all the time, which is what I learned, thankfully. So yeah, I was just insecure was more so my motivation than anything else.
Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, self-awareness is extremely important. And I think we could all use some more of it, right? Checking in at different parts in our life, different parts of our day, different parts of our journey. Um, do you think that when you were doing that though, that you were a better friend to those people then, regardless of the motive, but a better friend then or a better friend now?
Ooh, that's a good question. Mm, I think I'm a better friend now. Um, the motivations are much more genuine and much more authentic and come from a realer place. I'm maybe not as like face to face involved as a friend of it as I used to be because life has demanded otherwise. Sometimes it's not my. I guess that's the one caveat of like, how do you do it all? Like sometimes that sacrifice is like I don't get to see the people that I want to see all the time as much as I want to. But when I'm there, I'm there. And I think because of how busy I stay, I make a point to be as present as possible when I am where I am. And it's made me a better person because of that. I feel like I connect with people on a much more deeper level because of that. Even though I'm not necessarily seeing them all the time and like getting that like face to face, like real lifetime as much as I can, but better friend now for sure.
So not as available, but far more present when face to face or when giving your energy to something.
Yes, I think that's what it is. It's an energy give. It's I think that's a much better way to say it. It's when I am with you, I'm with you, whether it's like whether we're on the phone or whether we're zooming or and I mean I zoom all the time with my patients to like whatever it is, like I'm 100% here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is much more meaningful than the ambivalent, semi-scattered, fragmented energy that happened otherwise.
Yeah, and speaking of patients, I mean, for everyone that doesn't know, you're not just at CrossFit Brookhaven, just crushing as a mom, crushing as a competitor, working out all the time. There's other things that you're involved in, and one of those things is Wild Health. Can you tell me a little bit about that? I know that we've interfaced a little bit off camera in gym when we've both been dying under a barbell about this, but can you give a little bit of background there and how you even got connected with them?
Yeah. So Wild Health is a precision-based medicine company. So they're based out of Kentucky. I work for them as a health coach. And what we do is we work with providers who are also Wild Health doctors. And we, like you came to us as a patient, James. So James would fill out a spit tube. We would analyze your DNA. You would complete this really comprehensive lab panel. And then you would get this very comprehensive health report to help establish a care plan. And we're looking at your diet and nutrition genetics, exercise and recovery genetics, sleep, stress management, longevity, chronic illness. All these things are compiled into this really comprehensive report, and you create a care plan with your doctor that is mainly focused on health optimization, whatever that could look like. So my role as a health coach, you and I, James, would meet via Zoom. And my role is to essentially act as a guide to implement your care plan into your life into a way that's successful and sustainable and maybe a little bit of fun too. So I work with a lot of patients on building out their sleep and finding the right balances in their food that they need based on their genetics. And it's a really fun job. Oddly enough, I got it because the founder at Rhapsody is friends with one of the doctors at Wild Health, and they were bringing on a new cohort of health coaches. They encouraged me to apply, and here I am. That was the very like pitchy version of what Wild Health does. I kind of slipped into like my like kickoff intro call mode. It's a great job. I think that one of the first jobs that I've had outside of coaching at a gym where I really feel like I'm helping people build better lives for themselves.
Yeah. What part of helping people build better lives for themselves brings you the most joy at Wild Health, though? Like what part?
Like when people are telling me that they're sleeping better, like, and it's oh, not even that. And even on a broader sense, it's when people realize that it's the simple stuff. It's it's about creating these very, very tiny, tiny habits for yourselves that are sustainable and that are enjoyable and that like give a little bit of you back to yourself. So it's helping people retrain their brains around food and having a relationship with food. It's it's fun. Like watching people lower their A1Cs from like pre-diabetes levels to like sub 5. Like it's about people who've had cardiovascular events and getting off of their statins. It's like it's about people who have like, I don't know, they're training for even like watching people like lean to their optimization to boost their athletic performance. Like we have patients who are CrossFit Games athletes. Like Brooke Wells is a Wild Health patient. Amanda Barnhart's a Wild Health patient as well. Oh my gosh, what's his name? An athlete out of CrossFit East Nashville too. Like we have a lot of people and it runs the gamut. Like I was just talking about people who like reverse diabetes and then I end with like CrossFit Games athletes. Like it's so cool. Like health is such a spectrum for people and it's such a personalized approach that we provide. And I think that that's what people really appreciate because it's so different from what you would typically get when you go to the doctor. Like I'm here to talk to you and get to know you and take care of you. Like I'm not here to take care of like Gen Pop and give you a Gen Pop diagnosis, you know?
It also sounds like the care plans, not only they're personalized, but then on top of that, it's kind of a blend from modern medicine, like Western modern medicine, and the dietetics world, and you know, palliative care and coaching, right? Legitimate coaching that interweaves a little bit of, you know, optimization of also mental health as well. It sounds to me like it's kind of across the board, I guess you could say broad spectrum here, where most people have to go and like part and parcel this out at like 15 different places and then spending probably 15 or 20x what they would spend to be at a place like Wild Health, where also providers don't talk to each other, right? Like your chiro doesn't talk to your PT, doesn't talk to your MD, doesn't talk to your ortho, doesn't talk to your personal trainer, doesn't talk to your massage therapist, doesn't talk to somebody. Like there's so many people that do not speak together. It's very interesting to see an organization where everyone's in one.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it's been such a value. It's informed my coaching in the gym too. I feel like it's made me much more acutely aware of just how people come into the gym every day. Like I'm like, hey, like I had a personal training client yesterday, for instance, and she was just like run down the entire workout. And I'm like, Timmy, like, what's going on? She's like, I've only had 2 cookies today. I'm like, damn it, Timmy. Like, let's talk about food for a little bit.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, like, I'm just here to work out. And I was like, yeah, but it also ended up being about other things too. Like she just started a new job. She had driven from Houston, Texas and back to Georgia in like 4 days. So like her body was under a ton of stress. So all that to say, like my health coaching at Wild Health, like it's made me much more, it's informed my gym coaching so much more. Like, what does overtraining look like? How does it present itself? Like, what happens to your body from like a coordination standpoint when you're not sleeping well? You know, all of these things. And so like it's melded everything together in a way that's been really, really valuable.
Yeah, that's a lot of experience, probably crammed into a smaller amount of time, like a high level and very tactical, deep understanding and implementation of things that, you know, I would say probably 99% of your CrossFit coaches don't have the experience of, right? In all these different lanes. So that definitely makes sense. Now, in all of these things with kiddo, right? Being a mom,
Yeah.
like I'm sure that's got to bring you as much, if not more, joy than coaching.
Oh yeah, all day long. She is, man, incredible human. She's 4. She's an Aries. She is this like fire starter of a kid, and super extroverted, which is like really strange. And I don't know how to navigate that because I'm like, she doesn't know a stranger. So like we'll go out in places and she's like, hi, who are you? And just like inquire and ask. But It's the greatest joy of my life being a parent. I was not expecting to get pregnant when I did. But we were waiting. We wanted to wait for a little bit longer, but we leaned into it, and I can't imagine life before her, honestly.
Yeah, that's I mean, how I guess I'm curious. I mean, I'd never be pregnant, right? Biological male, not going to happen. But question, like, with motherhood, like how has that, I guess, either the coaching inform that, or the parenting inform the coaching side, being the childbearing individual, and also being like you're so plugged into so many places. I guess I'm curious, like, what has the carryover been, and how have you still found time to work out, time to coach, time to try to compete? Like, if I'm mistaken, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you went and competed the other week.
It's kind of, yeah, it was like a competition. It was like a community fitness
Uh-huh.
event. Like, yeah, did like a competition like 2 weeks ago.
It looked like you weren't just pulling some play weight though.
No, it was a deadlift PR, all time, lifetime PR. So that was super cool.
Yeah. So how do you balance all this? And do they inform one another, or does it only go one way? What does that look like for you?
They all inform each other. I think that as a parent, as a parent feeding into coaching, I feel like it's made me far more patient as a coach. I think sometimes, especially like me as an athlete and being able to like pick up movement very well, for sometimes I think early on in my, or maybe even early on in my CrossFit career, it was hard for me to understand, like, how do you not understand like what it means to move your body this way, to like pull your chest up and to like do all these movements and like push your knees out, whatever the case may be. But as a parent, you have to, like, I'm responsible for the emotional and physical development of a human. And that requires a lot of patience because she's 4. She's going to get super freaking angry about things that I find pretty benign.
Mhm.
But it's my job as her parent to walk her through these emotions and teach her that these emotions are safe, but also teach her how to handle these emotions. And so, and even handle like just physical changes. Like last night, we were in the backyard and I was teaching her how to throw a tennis ball because she doesn't know how to move her body. She's 4. Um, and so that patience that's developed as a parent, I think carries over into my coaching, in that, like, hey, you may not understand how to do this now, but keep working on it. I'm here to help you, and it'll come. Like, it's not going to happen overnight. It's these step by step by step progressions and processes. Like, and that's okay. And I think that's the part that's the most impactful, is teaching people that, hey, it's okay to be frustrated with where you are right now, and to like, to use that parent phrase, it's okay to feel your feelings, because it is, and they're
Mhm.
real and they're valid. It's okay to be pissed off that this clean or this whatever doesn't make, that this overhead squat is like nonsense to you. But we'll work on it. We'll get there. And it's going to be okay. Like, we can scale it back for a little while and then we dial it back up again. I think that's the biggest piece. And even with being, like you said, plugged into so many different things, I think my life, my career as a coach, at Wild Health, as a parent, they're all so integrated with each other. And I want them to be, that they naturally just kind of support each other in their own way. And in terms of like making time for myself, like to train and to do all that, like, gratefully I have a gym at home. We have a gym in our basement, so that that gets used a lot. But it's finding time and making time. Like, I'm a big believer of, the things that you make the time for are the things that are most important to you. And I always make time to train. So it just happens. Like, it sounds like almost like stupidly simple when I say it like that. But if it, for anything, if you look at your day and you block out your time with how you spent it, the things that you've spent the most time on most likely are the things that are the most important to you. And it's just, and I really like working out. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
I'm gonna make time for it. Like, that's honestly it. Like, I'm gonna, when he's gonna find a way. I'm hard headed like that.
Yeah, I think that you're 100% on the money with us voting with our time, and I think you could say the same a lot with allocation of spending. Right, we vote with our time and our money. Like, if you're a big health nut, right? Or you want to go down, you're in that area, you're probably going to see that maybe you're buying more straps, maybe you're buying more belts, maybe you're buying more shoes, maybe you're buying more things that can set you up for more training if that's what you love to do, or Pilates or yoga or what have, like you're probably going to find that you're spending, if you look back, like, okay, a lot
And
of
that's,
time and money invested in this.
yeah. And that's fine. Like, I think it's worth, like, if you love something and it isn't doing harm to anybody else and it's adding value to your life, like, dude, go all in for it. Like, just do it. Like, and I think we were talking about this with I can't remember who I was talking to, but we were talking about how, like, professional athletes have access to these elite levels of care, like with PT when they get hurt, or like recovery resources, all those types of things. And it's like, yeah, they love their sport. It's like, but also, like, I love my sport. Just because, like, I'm not a pro at something doesn't mean that I shouldn't invest in it, you know? Like, I don't know, I want to recover better. So we're talking about getting a cold plunge, or like, I want to sleep better. So we bought a sauna like a year ago, like, to support like all the things that saunas support. Like, if it's worth it, like, and you love it, like, then do it. Like, yes, like, if you're able to invest in it in the way that you want to, then go for it. Like, I think it's totally fine.
Yeah, I think so too. I think a lot of people perhaps get to a place where they're like, oh, but is it acceptable for me to spend $2,400 on a sauna? Well, hold
Man,
on.
live in it, embrace it. It's fine. You're gonna have friends coming over to your house, use your sauna all the daggone time. It's fine.
Right, right. Well, I know that you got to coach here soon, so I want to respect your time. And I know you got to get to the gym to set up, because I know you're not just rolling in there and starting class. I know you do a little bit more planning than that.
Yeah, a little bit of prep, a little bit of prep.
But anything that you want to leave any coaches with that are listening to this, or any members or any individuals that are looking for a coach or looking for the support on their health and wellness, anything you want to leave both of those bodies with?
Yeah, come visit me at CrossFit Brookhaven, of course. But follow me on Instagram as well. Shoot me a DM if you ever want to chat personal training, chat health coaching as well. It's a lot more than just working out. It's what you eat, how you sleep, your mindfulness. It's about your community as well. So slide into the DMs, if you will, at my coach Whitney is where I'm at. But yeah, I'm easy to find. I'm Googleable.
And for everyone that's in the Atlanta area, CrossFit Brookhaven is at I guess that's Buford Highway and Claremont.
Buford Highway. Yep.
Yeah. So right there, a little bit north of Buckhead, just barely. Right there on the corner. And y'all are open how often?
24/7, basically. We have class Monday through Saturday. We've got 5:45, 7 a.m., 12:30, 5:30, 6:30, Monday through Friday. We have a 9 and 10 a.m. on Saturday, but we have 24/7 open gym as well. So if anybody's got an in-between schedule, we can fit you. Or if you're just in town visiting, come on by. We're close to 85. Easy to get.
Well, Whitney, I really appreciate you making the time, and thank you for being so open and willing to explore things that maybe you haven't on a podcast before.
It's my first podcast, man. Yeah.
Let's go, baby.
Yeah.
Let's
go. First one. I was like, oh shoot, like, I'm going legit.
Let's get it. Well, I know that you're a heck of a light for those around you, especially in CrossFit Brookhaven. I'm still connected to a handful of people over there, and they speak very highly of you. So keep rocking in that gym, and also keep rocking on Wild Health. It was always super cool to chat about kind of a little bit of what you did there, and I'm glad that I now have even a bigger scope. And I think that this episode, when it comes out, will provide some value to some people, and I really appreciate you blocking the time out of your busy schedule to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.